Hey, welcome everyone. Here we go. Perfect. Appreciate you all joining our startup grind event today, and just looking make sure we're all set up here. But yeah, we're gonna kick off in a couple minutes, and looking forward to talking about navigating grants and non-dilutive funding, and having our team at Scout Climate joining us today. So let me just check in with them and make sure they're all set here. Oh, here we go.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, there we go.
Here we
I
go.
was just trying to resend the email, but yeah, glad we got you here and excited for our event today. So
Wonderful.
yeah, looking forward to kicking off. I think we have a couple other, this is from the Startup Grind Boston chapter. I think we have a couple other chapters represented here. If you're a director from another chapter, or if just everyone put in the chat like where you're tuning in from today, and looking forward to a great session.
Beautiful.
Yeah, before I hand it over, oh yeah, and you can use the chat at the bottom. We'll keep this interactive. Great to see, yeah, Ben from Rochester here. Grand Rapids represented by Josh. Awesome. Dillo from Boston. Great to see you, Dillo. Awesome. Yeah, Mike. He was one of our presenters at the pitch battle. Same with Bill. Great. All right, awesome. Yeah, we got a really good group here. And just for a quick background and intro, so Startup Grind, we have chapters around the world, several hundred plus, and it started out in Silicon Valley. The founder, Derek Anderson's vision was really, he was an entrepreneur himself. He's built several ventures now. Bevy is the event management platform, actually the platform we're live streaming and doing this webinar event on, and hosts events for everyone from community organizations to large company internal organizations as well. And basically he set out with a mission of, how do I learn from other entrepreneurs and experts, and help other people learn from their stories on what's worked well, and also on from different experts in the industry. And so yeah, everywhere, all these chapters, we host local and virtual events, connecting entrepreneurs to make friends, learn from each other, and have this great community and network. And also, as you can see from the chat, like we, team up and cross promote and share each other's events as well, and bring a global network together. So yeah, I had the opportunity, Stacy, we met at the Unconference by Mass TLC several months ago, and really loved everything you're teaching entrepreneurs as a startup and platform yourself, and an expert in the grant writing industry. So looking forward to today's chat on the grant winning platform. And I'll hand it over to you to kick things off, and we can keep the chat interactive throughout. So yeah, looking forward to everybody's questions and involvement today.
Wonderful. Give me 1 second. I'm having a little bit of difficulties right now. All right, here we go. Sounds good. Well, first of all, thank you so much to Startup Grind and Jason for the invitation to be with you guys today. I'm here to talk about one of my most favorite topics, which is how to get sweet free money from the government. And as many of you guys know, one great vehicle is through something called grants. And there's a lot of grant money out there. In the US market alone, there's over $400 billion of funding available. And if you take a step back and look at the worldwide scale, there's about $700 billion of grant in general available for up to grabs for you guys. Here, we're going to focus on one sector, which is the SBIR and STTR sector. And you see there's about $4 billion of funding available across different agencies. So a little bit more on that in a second. A lot of people come to me and say, hey, there's so much grant funding out there, but why can't I get it? And there's a lot of reasons for that. First, one, it's just really difficult to find grants. I'm not sure if you guys have had the burden of trying to find grant opportunities that are available for you and your startup. Right now, it's a lot of keyword searches on grants.gov or different websites with incorrect data. And everything is silos. If you want to find a grant from this agency versus that agency, you have to go and scour the internet and spend hours just finding the right grants for you and your startup. Two, the grant writing itself is time consuming. Usually, if you go after an SBIR phase 1 application, you can easily spend up to 50 or 60 hours on an application with a 10% success rate of getting the application awarded. And for bigger applications, tapping into like the $1, $2, $5, or $20 million range, you can spend even up to 200 hours at a time just to put together an application. And then finally, when you finalize and submit the grant application, there's a lot of other things you have to do. One, do you have the right font size? Two, do you have the right submission package in place? Do you have all the supporting and mandatory forms and documents? And are you filling out forms correctly and making sure you're hitting the submission deadline in time? Because sometimes if you get one application, you are out. So there's a lot of components that goes into writing a grant application. And for a little bit about myself, as Jason had mentioned, I've been in this crazy world of federal grants and contracting for about a year. Have to secure over 40, now $50 million of non-dilutive funding through a couple of different avenues. I had a small boutique firm prior to Scout, and I also was a PI, a principal investigator myself for SBIR and STTR funding. I reviewed for the NIH, National Institute of Health, and National Science Foundations. I'm also currently a mentor towards Techstars, Mass Challenge, C10 Labs, just to help other founders get non-dilutive funding out there. And so now we create a Scout to kind of tackle some of the biggest issues of getting non-dilutive funding, and we'll talk about that in a second. But first, let's talk about the SBIR and STTR program. Have any of you guys heard about this program or try to go after funding through the SBIR route before? You can put like a note in the chat if you have. Maybe. All right, so we can go over this a little bit more. So if you haven't heard of the SBIR and STTR program, yep, AFWorks and NSF, fantastic. This is called the Small Business Innovation Research, or the Small Business Technology Transfer Program. And in my opinion, this is a great way to fund startups willing to fund R&D innovations across 11 different agencies. So about each year, around 6,000 to 7,000 awards are granted out to a lot of small businesses across 11 different federal agencies. So here you can see the NIH has a program, the NSF has a program, DOD has a program, ARPA-E, ARPA-H, et cetera, et cetera. And so another question I get is, how do you get these grant funding opportunities, and why do they have these programs, right? And so the SBIR program is sponsored by the SBA, the Small Business Association, and their goal is to foster innovation here in the US, right? By giving out funds to small businesses, they want to encourage the development of innovations and solutions. And they also want to promote commercialization. So how do you take all these really innovative ideas and translate them to the commercial market to create revenue and also create jobs and economic growth here in the US. And finally, this is a great way to advance federal research. How do we align these small R&D goals to that of the federal agencies and giving funding to the start of businesses to help fund and advance research priorities? And so many of these SBIR programs come in 3 different phases. Phase 1 is all about early stage proof of concept to establish feasibility. So usually startups in this stage have a really interesting idea, but they're not too sure whether or not it has legs for commercialization just yet. This is a high risk and high technology proposal phase where you can take 6 to 12 months to test out a prototype, which is fantastic. And if you're successful to get a phase 1 and you prove out your technology, you can then proceed to phase 2, where you continue your R&D developments and you start taking your prototype towards commercialization, whether it's a pilot, a clinical trial, or some sort of feasibility in a real world setting. And usually phase 2 applications span for about 2 years. You can tap up to $1 or even $2 million of funding non-dilutively. And then finally, some programs have phase 3, where you have graduated from the phase 1 and phase 2 SBIR program. You can establish commercialization through private funding or governmental contracts with an end user, and that way so that you can deploy your technology or innovation to the global market or the US market. So this all sounds too good to be true, but there are eligibility criteria that you have to meet in order to qualify the SBIR and STTR program. First, you have to be a for-profit US-based small business that must be majority owned by at least US citizens or permanent residents in this space. The PI, which is the principal investigator, aka the one that's leading the efforts, have to be primarily employed by the small business. Importantly, you have to propose an R&D activity. So these are meant to be high risk and highly technical innovation grants to pursue R&D efforts in order to commercialize new technologies. So that means we're not really interested in funding market research or just developing innovations. We want to develop new innovations and test it out so that if successful, you have something that's much better out there. Finally, this is meant to support small businesses, which by definition means you have less than 500 employees. And then finally, you cannot pursue multiple applications with the same proposal objectives across different agencies. If you get that awarded, that's kind of considered double dipping, and it's unfortunately something that we just want to avoid at all costs. So how do you write a strong SBIR application? So typically there are 4 buckets I like to think about. So there's 4 different categories I'd like to think about when trying to craft a strong SBIR application. 1, the reviewers want to see something that's highly technical and innovative. So they're evaluating, do you have a novel technology? Does your project represent a really innovative solution that has not yet been tested out or widely commercialized? They're looking for the scientific and technical merit. Is your R&D approach rigorous? Is it well documented? Is it aligned to the agency's mission? And then finally, feasibility and research plan. What you're proposing, does it make sense? Does it make sense what you're proposing in your research development to actually be carried out by the team to meet the goals in order to validate that you have something interesting for the market opportunity? The next thing is commercialization potential. Like I mentioned, we're not here just funding fancy research and development efforts or spinning out new technologies or research in this space. It's really important to show that you have commercial potential for your innovation. So to evaluate whether your technology has commercialization potential, they're looking at your market opportunity. Is the problem really big that you're solving? If successful, do you have a competitive advantage by entering the market? And then 3, have you thought of a strategy to bring this product to market? Or rather, do you have a go-to-market plan in order to create revenue from this idea? Next, they're looking at your team. Do you have a qualified team of experienced scientists, engineers, or business leaders capable of executing this project? Additionally, if you are developing prototypes, do you have access to facilities and equipment to carry out the R&D research? And finally, they're taking a look at your budget. Do your costs align to what you want to propose? And does it make sense to carry out what you've developed or you propose to do in your proposal? And then finally, the most important in my opinion, is your technology and your go-to-market aligned with the SBIR funding agencies? So as you can imagine, if you're applying for a grant for the NIH, they might have a different scope and mission statement compared to that of the NSF, the DOD, and the DOE. So before we even start writing, I like to think about the agency's priorities and make sure we tailor our narrative based on what they're looking for to give you a better chance of an award. Finally, you can also get letters of support, except for the NSF SBIR Phase 1 application, to help validate the idea, or get letters of commercial interest to help support your application. And so from doing this work for about 10 years, I've learned that the secret to an SBIR application is to strategically put more shots out on goal. So usually if you want to raise VC funding, you typically don't go and talk to one VC, but rather you want to talk to multiple VCs, right? In the same idea, you don't want to just put in one grant application, especially if the success rate is less than 10% of getting it the first time. And so the name of the game is continue taking your application and finding more opportunities to submit a proposal in that manner. Second, as I mentioned, really important to tailor your narrative based on the goals of the agency that you want to apply for. Let me talk more about that in the example in a bit. But either way, these are still very competitive applications. Our team at SCAL has raised over $500 million of funding to date. And we're here to kind of help you craft the narrative or just answer any questions you have in order to boost your chances of getting an award. So one of the agencies that have SBIR program is the NSF or the National Science Foundation, which is called America's Seed Fund. And we here at SCAL really like this program because they're interested in investing in anything that's highly innovative and really groundbreaking in across all different technology sectors. So for that reason, they named this program as America's Seed Fund. And so we find that the NSF SBIR program is a founder-friendly approach. They're super open to new ideas, but they care about cutting-edge research, that high-risk, high-technology innovation, and to fund ideas that would catapult a new category or develop a new solution compared to what's currently out there. And so this is how the NSF process works. And as I mentioned, each agency has their own different processes. And we can talk about the differences between each of them in a bit as well. So if you're interested in going for the NSF SBIR program, the first step is a project pitch assessment. This is a 4 questionnaire survey where you respond to these 4 questions: the problem statement, technology objectives, your company and market, or the need in the market, and then your company and team. And they're going to evaluate whether or not you are a fit to the agencies and their mission statement. Once you submit the application, you'll hear back within 1 or 2 months whether or not the agency is interested and want to invite you to submit a full phase 1 application. And then once you get that invitation, and if you're lucky to get that invitation, that's where the fun begins. So this is where you get to submit a full phase 1 application, which consists of a 15-page project description, bio sketches, budgets, facilities and resources, a bunch of supporting documents, which takes sometimes on average 2 to 3 months to put together in order to get a competitive application. And we understand that's huge, that's a long time frame. So here at SCAL, we can reduce that time by at least 70% of our efforts. And then as you submit the application, when you're ready to submit the application, you hear back with your comments about 5 to 6 months later. So the next deadline for this year is November 5th. So in case you're interested in putting together an application, we strongly recommend submitting and preparing your project pitch ASAP. And so these are all the NSF funding priorities that they're interested in funding. So here, let me just blow this up a little bit more. If you look up NSF SBIR seed fund, you can go under what we fund, and here are all the topic areas that they are interested in. So again, this is a really founder-friendly approach because they're looking for any new innovations in any of these topic areas. And so if you take your cursor and let's just say scroll over advanced materials, you can see the subcategories of different types of innovations they're interested in funding. And so I just find this is a fantastic resource to look through and see, does my technology or my innovation align to what their funding objectives are looking for? You even go to view our awardees, which is another great resource, and see the different startups that they funded recently and breaking them down by phase 1, phase 2, location, or even technology type. So again, this is just a great tool to use in case you're looking into applying for the NSF SBIR program. And then finally, I want to tell you a little about Scout. Like I mentioned, it takes a lot of time and effort to put together an application. And so we have an AI platform to help founders find grants by using a customized approach, write the grants by leveraging AI and decades of expertise delivered in a platform, and win the grants with our team. So our team has raised over $500 million of funding to date. And so I'm just want to give you a quick demo of what we can do to help you accelerate your efforts. And if you sign up today, you get free grant matching in the system, which is exciting because finding grants that are the best fit for you and company, like I mentioned, takes a very long time. So if you log into Scout, what you can do is create a new project. And this is just a demo here, where you can put in a description, upload your white decks, your pitch decks, your white papers, anything that you have to create a grant thesis. And after you're doing, and this resembles the old-fashioned way where you come to Stacy and say, Stacy, I want to find a grant opportunity that's the right fit for me. I got to learn about what you're doing and then go out and search what's out there based on the current scope and level of your startup and kind of what funding goals that you're looking for. Are you looking for a couple $100,000 to progress in your startup? Are you looking for a couple $1 million to progress in your startup? And so this makes it just incredibly easy to just find grants that are the right fit for you. So once you upload all your files, we're going to go to a fictitious company called Barkband. You will get customized grant matches. And this is completely free. So anyone can sign up for this to date. Here, we're not finding grants for you with keyword searches, but rather we're taking that narrative that you're sharing with us and then finding the fit based on other solicitations out there. So our team at Scout have developed all these databases and scrapers to get all the federal grants out there and put it into Scout for you. So this gets updated constantly, and every Monday you get a list of new grant matches to automatically show up in your inbox and completely free. And so this hopefully this gives you an idea of what kind of non-dilutive fundings are out there. We're also opening this up to RFPs as well very, very soon. And then let's just say, hey, we want to write an NSF SBIR Phase 1 application. And so we actually have a lot of the SBIR applications templated out in our system. So it makes it really easy to go and develop an SBIR application. So usually, let's just go, for example, an NSF SBIR Phase 1 application. We're going to write a proposal. And let's just see if we want to rewrite an application. Here, this brings you to the writing section in the Scout. We don't want to just give you some sort of random LLM to write the application, because rather this should serve as your co-pilot and having you as the founder and the visionary drive the ship. So we want to educate you and kind of teach you how to go about a strong application, which is why you see these instructional channels here, and also some videos to walk you through the process. So usually this is the first thing you'll see, where you learn what is an NSF SBIR application. You will learn what you should be thinking about even before you start writing. For example, what's the problem am I solving? What's the market gap? What do I want to spend $300,000 12 months for? How do I commercialize this, right? So these are things we want to think about before we put pen to paper. Additionally, there are a bunch of these nasty company registrations that we have to go through that are mandatory in order to submit the application. So here in Scout, we have a step-by-step guide trying to making this as easy as possible for you guys. So for example, for the NSF SBIR program, you want to go through sam.gov, sbir.gov, research.gov, and then you can also sign up for grants.gov as well. And so we have videos to walk you step-by-step through every single step of that process. And then finally, when we start writing the project description, I'm just going to give you a quick demo where you can just upload again all the files that you've given us. Here we just have a deck and a paper here, and then all we got to do is just write the draft. Let's see, customize draft and drink draft. Oh, there we go, generate draft. And so what is going on behind the scenes? There's no drafts here. So here, let me just go through a different demo for a second. Workband. So let me just go through this project here, and it's phase 1. So here, when we go through the NSF program, what's going on behind the scenes is that we're sending all the interesting tools behind the scenes to our LLMs in order to generate the draft section here. So yeah, we'll go through the demo in a second. But usually you can just generate the draft, write a focus here, and it will show you a bunch of outputs that will give you the high level rigor of what we're looking for in terms of an application. So let me just give you an NIH sample just so you can see the output here. A Scout Biotech. Let's see. Okay, let me just go through this one for example. Okay, I have a little bit of lag on my end, so I apologize for that too. But either way, you literally just go through, generate draft, and then based on your outputs, and it will spit out the content here. And then when you're done, you just kind of rinse and repeat, and then click export. And then it just gives you the output as you see fit. So hopefully that's just a guide. We're happy to kind of walk you through if you have any questions on a grant writing strategy or just kind of curious about SBIR applications in general. But with that, I just want to thank you guys for being with me today, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. We do everything from NSF, DOD, DOE, USDA, and we're here to give you any advice on how to better secure non-dilutive funding.
Perfect. To lose question, yeah, great presentation, Stacy. And then to lose question, yes, we'll put the replay both on the Startup Grind channel, so it'll be back on the same event page you signed up for, and it'll be on the Startup Grind local YouTube channel. Happy to send the recording out to everybody that registered for this as well. And then, yeah, Scott has a great question there as well.
All right. Let's see.
There we go. Let me see if I can. Oh, wait. He's asking, let's talk about the elephant in the room. The current administration's cutting back on these grants. For example, a friend of mine is a senior NSF director, and their latitude in funding has been severely hampered. And as of last Friday, there's an open discussion about the agency being shuttered. What would you suggest as a strategy moving forward and other organizations to fill the SBIR gap?
That's a great question. So yes, so right now there's grant funding is a bit wonky during this time, which I completely understand. And so right now, it has been hampered, but the administration, from what we're learning, is that they're not bashing innovation. And so the SBIR program is actually up for renewal. Recently, they extended to another year. If all goes well, they're actually doubling the budget of the SBIR application. So instead of having each agency allocate 3.2% of their budgets to the SBIR program, they are trying to push that to 7%. And the SBIR program also renews every 3 years. They're trying to get rid of that. So it's a permanent funding agency, right, for early stage startups and for small businesses. So yes, even though we're seeing some budget cuts in the federal landscape, we're not seeing that impacted too much in the SBIR world. We do recommend still going for applications. We do have clients. We do have clients getting awarded to date despite these delays. You're correct. Climate, particularly at this point, is getting a bit more impacted than the other areas. We also are looking for private and other state funding mechanisms as well to kind of provide that gap.
Yeah, I have a question off of that too. So, I know there's been several recent releases about the administration's innovation priorities. So, for example, like the energy sector is still a priority, but not clean, like not climate focused clean energy. So, looking at, and there's other examples like, AI, but, what is that focused on? And same in the blockchain and crypto space. So, should we be looking towards the like administration's focus, or still stay with what's on the SBIR website and kind of go from there?
That's a great question, Jason. And it really depends on kind of what you're looking for in terms of the narrative, right? So sometimes based on the current administration focus, sometimes it is about crafting a narrative that's more aligned to the agency's priorities. It could be also talking to your program officers, asking, what they're looking for and how we can tailor the funding towards your application. And so we also recommend, if you have an opportunity to talk to a program officer, especially for like a DOD, an NIH, before you start writing, to kind of present an idea that you have. It might save you a lot of time and effort if they say, hey, this is just something that we're interested in. And that's why for the NSF, we really enjoy the project pitch, because it is a 4-question or a questionnaire where you can get screened whether or not, and they'll tell you off the get-go whether or not they're interested in your application. So that'd be a good way to see if this idea is even of interest to them before you dedicate the time and effort to put together an application in general. So we have a lot of best practices. You can talk to people like us that have seen like hundreds of these applications a day. And a lot of times too, it's about crafting the narrative and putting it into a language that speaks to their viewers and agencies. So I find that grant writing has a bit of an art to it as well. And it takes time to kind of understand what that art looks like for the agencies.
Perfect. And Scott's also asking, is there a EU or international equivalent to the program?
Yes, there is. So there is, I think, it's called the SIRB or something along that lines as well for the EU equivalent. I think climate in those areas, in that side of the world, a little more heavier in terms of climate grants. So that's something you definitely look to as well too. I'm not quite sure the requirements, whether you need like an EU citizen or someone to carry those applications out.
Perfect. Yeah, any other questions? Either put them in the chat, or we can unmic here and or I think there's a oh yeah, if you go to the more, you can raise your hand too, or just unmic and share your questions.
Yep. And I'll send you my email as well too, or you want to check out wingrants.com. You guys can tap in to the free grant matching and just like take a look at that. Yep, absolutely. So we have a couple different packages. So our fee is combined an upfront cost with a success fee. And so that's something, we have a couple different options that we're happy to talk to you more about to see what makes the most sense for you.
I have a question, Stacy.
Yeah, sure.
So I know, how is it different between like a deep tech company or like a very consumer-based or user-based company or application? How that grant scenario would look like?
That's a great question. So we focus more on startups that require a lot of capital. So you can think of, like you said, deep tech, health tech, biotech, climate tech. Typically at the stages where VCs may not be ready for you guys just yet. So usually those stages, in order to progress your startups and de-risk your technology, a very common way is through find grant funding, right? And that's a way to prepare for VCs, for example.
Yeah.
Kind of move things forward until you're ready to get that outside capital.
Yeah, and how would that work for the consumer tech side for grants? Let's just say underrepresented demographics or whatever. Like, how would that? Is it just a matching thing? I'm just trying to understand that landscape or the possibilities of those grants for a consumer tech, which is not a deep tech.
Consumer tech, I'm not too familiar with grants in the consumer tech world. I think it really depends on the market. Happy to talk offline too to see what might make the most sense for you. There could be other grant opportunities out there. We mostly focus on the SBIR and STTR application just so it helps, because we tap into startups looking for a couple hundreds of $1,000s or a couple $1 million of funding to support their efforts. But there are a lot of other grants out there. There can be minority grants. There could be some foundation or state grants, So it depends on what grants are out there that's the right fit for you and what you're looking to accomplish.
Great, thank you. Yeah, you will see a LinkedIn invite from me. Happy to talk.
You got it. Absolutely. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we have a few more questions here. So What's the acceptance rate? This is from Sonia. The acceptance rate of current applications when a lot of institutions are curtailing funding.
Great question. So for the SBIR and STTR applications, these are very competitive applications. And frankly, it all depends on how ready the startup is, in terms of fit. And so usually I tell clients expect a 10, 11% shot to gain these first time because of how competitive they are. But working with experts combined with AI, even at scale, we can 5x the chances of getting this awarded. There is like a name, a song and dance to play with. In terms of getting these grant applications awarded. And so working with experts that have seen the good and bad and everything in between can give you that 1%, those low percentage of increase to get your proposals awarded versus kind of doing it yourself.
Perfect. And Elmira wants to know if having permanent residency is a crucial eligibility requirement, or does something like an O1 visa work as well?
Okay, so if you're looking for an SBIR program, they're looking for PIs and the majority ownership of that startup to be either U.S. citizens or permanent residents. So as you can imagine, these are U.S.-based grants, right? So they want to fund and spur U.S.-based entities. And so there are grants available in the U.S. that foreign entities can apply for, but they may just be outside the SBIR program.
Perfect. I think that answers Shamina's question about supporting startups from Latin America. So there's other programs you have available for like either foreign entities or ones that don't fall into the SBIR requirements.
Yeah, and again, there's a lot of different grants out there, right? And so Google searches work well, grants.gov work well. You can even go into Scout and see what the grants are available for you. It really depends on kind of what your short and long-term business goals are, and see if there's other applications that could be a good fit for what you're trying to accomplish.
Great. Yulia wants to know if you need to have an affiliation with any academic institutions to apply for grant funding.
That's a great question. So usually when I think of grant funding, I think about what do I need to accomplish, and do I have the right resources in place to carry those proposal efforts out? And so if that requires an academic institution because a startup doesn't have access to either expertise or facilities or resources to carry the proposal out, then it might make sense to partner with an academic institution. And so that's actually a really common practice when spinning out research from academia into startups, where maybe the startup is still in the bootstrapping mode and they need to still lean on the researchers and the institution to carry out the proposal efforts. And so some of these startups might want to apply for an STTR instead of an SBIR, where more than 1/3 of the work and efforts might be relied to a nonprofit research institution like a university. So it really depends on a case-by-case basis to see what makes the most sense for you.
Perfect. Sonia is asking, if you are not approved and don't win a grant, should you keep trying?
Yes. If you go pitch to a VC, you don't get it the first time. Should you keep trying? Absolutely. Right. And the beauty of the grants in the grant world is that if you don't get it, you're going to get feedback, right, from the reviewers. You may not agree with all the feedback from the reviewers, but at least you get some feedback as to what the strengths and weaknesses of the application. So likely, if you don't get it the first time around, that's very common. And that's something just to not give up, but rather to try it again. We have clients that have gotten the proposals the first time around. Maybe they got it the fifth time around, right? And every single time you go back in, you can reiterate more on your application and it comes stronger and stronger at the end of the day. And sometimes maybe we just have to pivot our narrative to a different direction to get a better shot of getting the application. And so happy to take a look at that if you guys need any guidance support for those applications.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you might have made like pretty significant progress in the 3 to 6 months in between too, and that can definitely help the application as well. And then Lou is asking like about the grant space for small businesses and things like he has a small dessert shop. So are there any opportunities there as well?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm not too familiar if there are any grants in that space, but that's something you can look into your local SBA or even state applications or opportunities that can give you better direction.
From Mike, do set aside standards like WOSB or SDVOSB help in gaining an award?
Mike, do you mind? I may not be familiar with those standards. Do you mind expanding those out a little bit more or giving some more context? I think that'd be helpful for me.
Sure. And Mike, yeah, either if you want to unmic or just put in, women-owned small business.
It really depends on the agency and the funding opportunity. So there are some applications that have a strong component for like either minority or women-owned or veteran-owned businesses. For the SBIR program, there is like a check mark to mark whether or not you are a woman-owned businesses or in a disadvantaged population. Did I find it helpful to get an award? Maybe. What I can tell you is from my experience, reviewers are just looking for the rigor, the competitive nature of the application, and the strength of it in order to, as kind of the main features that lead to an award and application. Thank you, Mike.
Great. Cool. Yeah. Final. Here we go. Yeah, I'll ask a kind of wrap up question here. Is like, everybody on the call today is probably at different stages in the process, but if you're just starting to think about like if a grant is even right for you and your business, like what's the starting point or what's the first thing you should be doing to look at this process?
Yeah. So if I'm starting out again and I'm wondering whether or not grants are the right opportunity or fundraising path for me, there's a couple of things I would think about, right? One, what is my value proposition and what do I want? Where do I want to see my business, right? It all starts on what you're trying to achieve as a business. Are you developing a new innovation? Are you trying to sell a service? Are you trying to, license product, right? And then once you figure out what does that roadmap look like for you, you can kind of think about what is my fundraising strategy. And sometimes when it's difficult to raise VC funding, many people do lean on different alternative routes. And so it's not just going for grants or VC route. There's also other ways too, like loans. There's like crowdsourcing. There's other bootstrapping methods as well for non-dilutive. There are other awards and incubators that you can also pursue as well too, right? I know it's difficult to know at the early stages when you're trying to figure things out. And so a lot of people kind of go in each of these paths and kind of explore each of these avenues, talk to a bunch of people, learn from them. There are great resources out there like Jason and Startup Grind just to see what other people's experiences are. So networking, just learning what makes the most sense for you and some of the experiences from other people and experts is always can be, I find, very helpful.
Amazing. Yeah, really loved your presentation today and great questions from everybody in the audience and appreciate all of you joining us. So yeah, I'm also going to put a link to our chapter page here. We have a couple, it didn't show up as a link. Let me, there we go. Yeah, so we have a couple things coming up too. That's like across the global network of Startup Grind. On October 1st, there's an AI summit, which is it's going to be a big event, like bringing everybody globally, about 7,000 attendees from around the world, great speakers. And during that portion, around 11:30 Eastern time is also, and this is October 1st, is also the finals of the Startup Grind All-Star Pitch Battle that we had. So definitely check that out. It'll be listed on our chapter page. And then on the 8th, we have a webinar with HubSpot called Tiny Teams, Big Results, and how AI is rewriting the scaling playbook. So, we're going to be sharing the webinar from today on our page, on our YouTube channel, and I'll send out a follow-up newsletter to everybody that participated and share any links to connect with Stacy and her team and help support your grant writing as well.
Great.
Stacy, anything you want to
No,
share?
thank you for the time today. I appreciate Jason Stargrind again for the invitation, and just let us know how we can best support.
Awesome. Thank you, and appreciate everybody joining us. Have a great day.
Wonderful. Thank you guys. Take care. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.